So the next phase that I'm going to talk about was the month of July. So July comes in, and there's this big OSDP workshop. At the OSDP workshop, out of the blue, Mrs. Claus tells a guy who was attending the workshop. She tells him, "Oh yeah, we got terrorists here in the sanctuary," and she was describing, I guess lawsuits and stuff like that, not knowing that this brother was in the filing cadre. Okay, so he knew exactly who she was talking about, and he said to her, he just popped that bubble right there, and he said, "Yeah, Jamal's my friend," and she ran off, turned red and ran off, But if you think about anything that I ever did to this woman would ask me theological questions. Even sometimes Hyungjanim, seeing her unclear about stuff, would have her come ask me or Robert Piquel what we think about it. Okay, so she was in the habit of asking me theological questions. So it's a weird relationship because you have behaviors that show that you have the behaviors of someone who has respect, but then you have the behaviors of someone who has absolutely no respect, right? So what kind of person will ask you for theological advice, believing you're a source of clarity, but then think you're actually a wicked person or something like that, a terrorist? So anyway, I just chalked this up to the mobilization that Kuchinam, when in June, said to the Lord, "Okay, marshal in your troops." I just took this as one of the after effects of that decree. But when I think about what I did to this woman, I'm like, really, what I did to her was not talk to her. And not talking to people is actually ostracism goes way back. It's actually a very useful tool. But energetically, if you don't give something energy, you're not participating in it at all, right? If you give something energy, even if you don't like it, you're to some degree participating in it. Shoot, even as I'm making these videos, giving the story some energy, I'm still participating in it. Well, I'm participating in the story still because I, as a member of the citizenry, did not report back to you what I found when I clearly stepped on this path to do these acts on behalf of the citizenry. So I just, from many of you guys' point of view, just disappeared, and I was feeling for 2 years or so that that's not right, and that's why I did these videos. Okay, so that's why I'm telling you what I got when, on behalf of the citizenry, I set out on this path. I'm telling you what I got. All right, so I do believe that it is an original power of Adam and his descendants to, because they're the source of love in the cosmos, human beings, the mediator and center of harmony, they have the power to put Satan in the bottomless pit by not having give and take with him anymore. So, me not talking to her was done on purpose after I witnessed something. It just happened to be me, her, and Hyungjin at his breakfast table. And Hyungjin didn't have anything to do, and I was off that day, but she had to go to work. And so instead of getting up from the table and going to work, she says, which would have left me there having a one-on-one time with Hyungjin, she says to him, "Shirley, you got to go somewhere." He was like, "Nope." "Oh, Shirley, you must want to be with the queen." And he was like, "Nope, she's at the church having a meeting." And then she was like, "Well, there must be something you need to go do." He goes, "Well, I could go buy some pellets for my fish." She says, "Oh, okay, yeah." So he gets up from the table as if to go buy pellets for his fish. And that's when she was satisfied that the meeting that would have ensued, where he and I are just, what's the word when something happens randomly? Yeah, just sitting there, found there randomly, like that wouldn't happen. So she wanted me to do something for one of her events a couple of days later. But, I told God when I saw her text, I told God, this woman didn't want me to have a meeting with Hyungjin, so I'm going to set the condition of not talking to her I'm not going to answer her for 40 hours. Well, that 40 hours ended 2 or 3 hours before the event started. So what? Why? Because if you don't teach the rest of the world that you're the child of God, and use the powers, and ostracism is a power. You are not, if you don't realize you're not obligated to love, you'll never use this power, and it won't be at your disposal. And you got to live your life. The Bible says that we're going to ostracize Satan. Nobody's going to have give and take with him. So, I don't have to forgive people, and I can find my way to let them know that, I feel bad if they use some tactic against me. I don't have to pretend that it never happened. Okay, and my forgiveness is not a foregone conclusion. It's something that I choose. So anyway, this is really the only thing that I can think, other than the fact that I'm going after a fellow woman, Lourdes, and they say being a woman is a team sport. Women are so empathetic to one another that if you harm one of them, it's as if their mirror neurons kick in and they feel like you harmed them all. Well, not all women are like that, but anyway, I can't find where I did anything to this woman except not smile and not exchange pleasantries. But she should be a big girl, and she should be filled with love from her husband, so she should be able to get over it. But instead, she's calling me terrorist. So you got to understand, people coming in from out of town being told that, oh yeah, we got an issue here. There's terrorists among us right here in Pennsylvania. I mean, that's deep, right? So I'm just saying that the environment was getting more and more toxic. The other thing that was happening during OSDP. No, I'll skip that. It's probably a little bit trivial. So anyway, after OSDP, the week after, the DP road trip was launched, and within the first week, the filing cadre was having Zoom meetings. I was doing it by my phone, and we concluded our preparations for the first file, and I emailed them to Greg Knoll as the church administrator, and then Hyungjin I think it was the 26th of July, gave a sermon about what he was going to do about it and how he got a rhema in Numbers 33. And in Numbers 33, incidentally, Numbers 33 is the chapter where Aaron passes away. But Numbers 33 is he said he read Numbers 33, the children, these are the journeys of the children of God, he said. So he thought that this is part of what the children of God are going through. So the court case, let it play out. It'll be a good thing. It'll show that sanctuary has a due process and an upside down kingdom and can hold public officials accountable, and that the Constitution can be used, and blah, 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 blah. So he said that in many angles it was a good thing. And then what happened? Tim Elder comes in and he says, this is all bogus because there is no Chunoguk. And if there is no Chunoguk, this document is not active. Now, this man can say this even though Hyungjin was on record saying that it's active. Okay, so he can think for himself. Great. So he shares his opinion in one of those secret Thursday meetings that, I was barred from. Yeah, Dr. Panzer's wife told me that Hyungjin wanted me in that meeting, and everybody at that meeting protested no. And she told me, even though the king wanted you in that meeting, they all said no. So that was June, and I skipped that. So anyway, back here in July, they were at that secret meeting, and I guess Tim had the floor, and he talked Hyungjin into believing that the kingdom does not exist. It's a really semantical form of wickedness, because the kingdom outlined in the document may not exist. Depends on the way you look at the document. But there's no way that you should assert that the kingdom does not exist when True Father said that the long-awaited kingdom, that day had finally come in January of 2001. There's no way you should, in a cavalier way, assert to the whole world that the kingdom is not here. No, some version of the kingdom in your mind, according to the way you and your friends drafted that document, that kingdom doesn't exactly exist, maybe. Maybe that's your problem. But you're confusing that with the kingdom that is here, the one that Father was talking about. And there should be no confusion, because they should be one and the same. Anyway, so Hyungjin, he says on his King's Report live, he says, this is January, I think it was January 28th. I'm not certain. January 28th, January 27th. Anyway, in his King's Report, he was saying, well, Tim had a point last night, and so, there is no elected Congress, and there is no land, and there is no king or whatever. So the point is, he took all the facets of the kingdom one by one and said that they hadn't been erected yet. And if a person who said that Father put a crown on his head that the king doesn't exist, well, that's kind of contradictory, don't you think? And so Tim had somehow coaxed, I'll say coaxed, Hyungjinim into speaking out that condition. And the funny thing is, Hyungjinim had been doing a very powerful condition, a very powerful act of concentration and focus, because from March of 2016, we're already at July of 2017. From March of 2016, Hyungjin Sean Moon was preaching every week about the kingdom by picking all the verses in the New Testament that have the word kingdom in it and ministering about those verses. And he did this, he said, because when the kingdom is preached, the kingdom will come, right? So, okay, so if you were Satan and Hyungjin was about to complete that condition, would you want it completed or would you want it soiled? So Hyungjin did complete the actual sermons the following week or the second week after, but Tim Elder had fought him and won in the issue of getting Hyungjin to admit, in some sense, in some part of his heart, or in some part of his rhetoric, in some part of his ministry, in some part of his beliefs, that the kingdom had not come. It literally came out of Hyungjin's mouth because of Tim Elder's level of faith, which I won't speak about that. So, yeah, because there's no kingdom, Hyungjin and Jim Bohr came up with this idea, I guess it was Hyungjin and Jim, that to afford us an opportunity to actually carry out court, because you have two types of people now in his midst. You have these people who are arguing online that the kingdom does exist because Father said so. And then you have these people who are saying it doesn't exist because of the way that Tim Elder views the kingdom according to the document that he and his friend drafted. So it's not funny, but God, putting the power in the hands of a fool. I mean, seriously, put a lot of power in the hands of somebody who doesn't really deeply know what they're talking about. And oh my God. Okay, so anyway, so they had two types of people that they were trying to accommodate. So they created a situation whereby court could commence if both parties believe that Chanoguk exists. Okay, so if they believe that Chanoguk exists and then they believe that they are a citizen of that kingdom, then court could commence, right? So this is sort of like, in a sense, the second court. It's not the voluntary court I'll talk about in August, but it's sort of like the faith court or the belief court, okay? So Lourdes and I had 7 days to get back to the court with our answer to the question, do you believe that Chanoguk exists? Do you believe that you're a citizen of Chanoguk? Well, me and the entire filing cadre understood that she really wanted to avoid the spectacle of court. And we knew that she wanted to very badly. So we were wondering, we quickly mapped out what she was going through. If she could bear the spectacle and say, yes, I believe in Chanoguk. Yes, I believe in Chanoguk. And yes, I'm a citizen. Then she would have to face court. And she would have to face exposing her demons or failings or weaknesses or treachery or whatever you want to call it. So we were kind of sitting there wondering if she was going to throw herself, her identity as far as Father sees it, under the bus in order to save face. Well, she lets the entire time lapse because she doesn't, and she's saying online that, you know, she doesn't want to say that she's not a citizen of Chanoguk. She'd rather multiply evil by telling everybody that she's talking to online that Chanoguk does not exist. So how could I be a citizen? She doesn't want to say, I don't believe I'm a citizen. She wants to say, I don't believe citizens exist. Which, instead of marring herself, she has to mar everyone. So she not only avoiding looking bad in a court case, but she took the extra bonus to her, I guess, her vanity, and decided that no, she's not a lone person disbelieving in her own citizenship. She's just a group, she's, you know, passively in a group of people who, just so happen to not be citizens of Chanoguk because Chanoguk doesn't exist for any of them. Isn't that neat and tidy? Everything one's vanity would want, right? So this is how July comes to a close. Later on, Gideon Rauchi asked at a town hall, a fateful town hall meeting, who among the church officials that were at the panel believe that they are citizens of Chanoguk. And sitting right next to Tim Elder, Lord Schwartz says, right after Tim Elder, no, I am not a citizen of Chanoguk. Okay, because Gideon asked, and she said, no, I'm not a citizen. So this was actually the official answer that we couldn't get at the end of July. So anyway, she let the 7 days of the court-ordered statement lapse, and so the second court, the faith court, was dashed. A couple of days after she let it lapse, I was at the King's Report, and after Hyunjin had breakfast and everybody filed out, I had a talk with him in his backyard, and I told him that she let it lapse, and that she refused to, consider herself to be a citizen. And he goes, well, then you won, which I had been thinking that too, in some sense. But I'm in a filing cadre, and there's a lot of thoughts and ideas going on. And one of the other thoughts and ideas is that the public official was never held to account. And she wasn't held to account over a technicality. And, what could be said is that we're tolerating people who don't even feel like they're citizens of our country. So we're in a microcosm where we believe we're in a certain nation called Chanoguk, and the people serving us, that is if government were in an object position, but the people serving or manipulating us, in the case of the people who were filing, we were being manipulated by who? Fellow citizens who were power mad? No. We were being manipulated or assaulted by or threatened by a person who isn't even a citizen of our nation. So to take that as victory just doesn't seem like, it goes far enough. So I told Hyunjin, I said, we're thinking about filing against the World Mission Department because the leader of the World Mission Department is asserting that Chanoguk does not exist. And he fashioned, sort of like a protective umbrella away from justice for her. And she's tucked down under that rationalization, not being held accountable. So I said, what are we going to do? Like sue the World Mission Department for hiring an illegal? She's in our country, in our nation, Chanoguk, not honoring the citizens because she doesn't believe that citizens exist. I mean, what are we supposed to do? But the second I said to Hyunjin about, picking a bone with the World Mission Department, he was kind of looking off like this, but then when I said that, he just went, and I gathered he thought that was a very serious concept. And that's when he started to, bark at me more in his King's Report. He didn't, necessarily bark at me in public. I guess he thought that, if everybody had saw some spectacle where I'm being put down, that I would relent. I have no idea why he chose to do it on the King's Report. I still think that when you see what he did in February of 2018, where he spends 2 hours going at me, I guess he thinks that that tactic works against me. It actually doesn't. But what it does make me think is that the citizenry, or not the citizenry, the group, the social network that adores him, that they'll go outside of their conscience to follow in lockstep with him. And now I'm dealing with that. All right, so that was July. That was everything that got baked up in July of 2017.